I call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is review of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve? Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're gonna take the 20
Sure. Yeah. The abridged version, in advance of a broader Great Point presentation on the next month or two. They wanted to release some summary economic commentary, regarding the moderating of the, inflation rate, slowly down the Fed target. Easing cycle in September, rate cuts ongoing, but albeit maybe a little slowly, more slowly than what we initially predicted. And then geopolitical risks remain to be continued in January, February. Bob and Lee shall be coming in with a more complete presentation. Summary portfolio performance is $11.30, $5.6 million, and then still compliant with investment policy guidelines. Reserve portfolio returns gross 3.6%, liquidity returns gross 4.7%. One single larger event was the $1.46 million outflow on October 17th to fund the 3400 purchase. Operationally, it's agreed to a 1-month extension with the downtown business improvement district for the office spaces, executed on December 3rd. Good for the period of January 1st and 31st. There was a 5-day prior notice for ongoing 1-month extensions. We did that as a claim.
With a CPI index escalator monthly if they take us up on additional extensions.
Future extensions will be actually will be subject to the potential escalator.
Because they would normally be due an escalator on an annual basis and we would do that for each extension.
Includes the interim investment operational update.
Great, thanks. Tom, are you gonna take the next one or is that Andy to see?
Andy's gonna do this too. As
Oh,
well.
okay.
Yeah. Andy, you could do it too, if you want. I mean, this is, go ahead. I wrote down the numbers. This is a standard, I'll meet all. This is the agreement that we've seen each year. There are two largest funding sources on a regular basis for services. We have this IDA CRC professional service agreement and economic development agreement with the IDA. Together, they equal over $850,000, $882,228, $632,228 for the IDA CRC professional services agreement, and then $250 per annum paid over on a quarterly basis on the IDA economic development professional services agreement. So, and I'll let the staff go in, we provide an awful lot of services to those two entities, which is common throughout the state. You know, the LDC provides staff services to the related municipal IDA/CRC. I'll stop talking.
I'm not sure anything I would add to improve on that, but no changes for 2025. Previously reviewed with the IDA CRC Finance Committee, Board of Directors review scheduled for the 19th of December. Staff would request a positive recommendation. Moving forward, there are 5 individual agreements. Legal services general counsel, legal services for bond and special counsel.
Those are just for the IDA only, those legal services agreements.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay.
So it's just the economic development, for the professional service agreement
and the economic development professional
agreement.
services.
Sorry about that.
Nope, that's fine. So 2, total, is component there, similar funding source. Professional services, board reviewed the professional services agreement between the City of Albany IDA, Capitalize Albany Corp, and the CRC, in which Capitalize Albany provides professional economic development management and administrative support services to the City of Albany IDA and Capital Resource Corporation. This was previously discussed at the IDA and CRC Finance Committee meeting and received a positive recommendation. Based on budgetary projections for 2025, the amount of the agreement, $632,000, remain the same. Each year this is examined to ensure the amount aligns with the services provided. And I think we've had positive conversations with the chair, and given the pipeline projected for 2025, staff feels that this amount remains
And we're still tracking like internally how much time we're spending on IDA type activities.
Yeah, and despite the fact that the pipeline is, as it stands now, looking more sparse than it typically does, it looking ahead into the following year in December, staff is gonna provide pretty much the same amount of hours to manage both these entities. Of the majority of what we're doing is a lot of compliance, a lot of posting on websites, just a lot of back and forth with existing project applicants. So we're still gonna be putting in significant time. And we do hope that there are some projects out there that we just don't foresee at the moment that come through. And if that is the case, we're gonna re-examine the fee being paid.
What would be a typical like lead time when you begin to know something's bubbling up inside the pipeline?
Yeah, so typically when people either apply to or start flirting with applying to planning board, we either hear about it and or we get a general sense of comfort that it stands a better chance of going from the idea phase to planning and actually into the project. So right now in our pipeline of projects that we know, either the developer is a known quantity. Most of them are purpose-built affordable housing. But the problem there is that that's completely relied upon the award of low-income housing tax credit. So sometimes that process just itself can take multiple years. So even things that we are thinking and hoping stand a good chance of coming to fruition in 2025 may not.
Something additional that will take further staff time this year is staff has commenced an update to the project and evaluation and assessment framework. It's really just waiting on the final tax rates from the county.
Yeah.
But we did restart up that conversation at CAC governance. So that's going to take a fair amount of time to refresh that. In the interim, staff's time in reviewing projects has been a bit more extensive based on we don't have a set framework the way we did previously. We're using that as a basis, but every project is really an individual review with a third-party consultant typically and assessed at that level. So it makes it simpler and more streamlined when we have the framework online. But so many things got blown up out of proportion these last few years that the framework wasn't really in alignment anymore.
And then the new one nuance from a legal perspective is that Ashley serves as CEO of both, or president, and then CEO on the other side. So we've elevated these agreements to be signed by the board to pull her out of being on both sides. So the chair on our side signs this. This is an agreement that Joe Scott and Joe on the other side and I negotiated many years ago. There's been no substantive changes since that negotiation. So actually, when this was first put together, the board with me negotiated this back and forth because the staff was sort of on both sides of the table, if that makes sense. So that's the way this is formatted and continues to be that way.
These did come out of the IDA's and CRC's finance committee meeting last week, positive recommendations. We see no reason why they won't be approved at the IDA and CRC level this Thursday. So just an FYI.
So you're looking for a positive recommendation from this committee tomorrow, or is that
Yes.
Positive recommendation of the
do
board.
we need a motion for that, Tom, or?
Yeah, I mean, you should do it at the committee and then you would report that as part of your committee work
Make a motion.
to recommend the chairperson sign these agreements. Yes.
I'll second Richard's motion. All in favor? Aye.
Do we need one for both separately or can they be?
You're gonna recommend both is what I heard. in that.
Yes.
Yes, so I think I can do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Moving on to Mark update.
Did we move them both with one vote?
Oh, I'm gonna go, okay.
Yep.
And then Clinton Market, at Clinton Market, with the grand opening on August 1, we are now at the point where staff is seeking reimbursement from the various grant sources. So the one update here is that National Grid came through very, very fast. Thanks to National Grid, we do have our $250,000 in grant resources received prior to year end, which was not necessarily the way we had it budgeted. I think we had it budgeted for 2025, but they were like unprecedented.
From
fast.
receipt to issuance, 12 days.
Take it quick, like I said, deposit.
Yes,
Quick.
so that is the type of unprecedented that you like to have if you're gonna have something. And then the update here today, is that you have a draft grant disbursement agreement from Empire State Development. As, we've discussed previously, the GDAs for ESD happen at the back end of the project. As a fully reimbursement, they happen when the project is completed. So we have, they held a public hearing and they sent staff, the GDA that's in your agreement. This is a draft. We would anticipate that the final version would look very much like this, if not the exact same things, the stock template. But they, still have their process to follow through with Public Authorities Control Board. So what we would be seeking is a committee recommendation for the resolution that's in the board packet, that would be to authorize the president to negotiate and execute this agreement when it becomes final for our $750,000 in grant resources for Clinton Market from ESD.
Is there anything crazy in that contract? It's a big contract. I didn't read it.
No, it's a standard stuff. It does have MWBE requirements, as is typical with the state agencies. There is, I think the one thing I wanted to note is there's a 1% commitment fee. So when we execute this GDA, that will be required to have a check from Capitalized Albany to be submitted with that, or a wire. I can't remember which it is. So
Which is exactly what we did for the Liberty Park.
yes. Liberty Park, because it was a lot bigger amount, they allowed us to do that in thirds. So we did one payment a year for 3 years. And it was about 33,000 a year and change.
All right, motion,
I'll make a motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass unanimously.
Awesome. Okay, Liberty Park. So for Liberty Park, I think, well, we will take trailways first, I think, because, yeah. that'll
Sure,
work.
so real quick, I know we kind of just, some high level things. Back in 2023, Capitalized Albany was awarded a New York State Main Street grant for the stabilization and, potential identification and abatement of hazardous materials in the former Trailways bus station. That's 358 Broadway. That's the historic structure.
Looks like the Jetson building.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So that, so what we did was we, in conjunction with a third-party consultant, had people that know about this stuff go in the building, and they gave us a total cost estimate of about $475,000 to identify, abate, and remove any potential hazardous material there. The grant amount is $356,250. So that money expires November of 2025. So we do not want to leave that on the table. What the first step entails is conducting a hazardous materials assessment survey, essentially. So we would be looking to contract with a third party that does this on a regular basis. They would go into the property, identify all potential hazardous materials that would need to be abated and or removed, provide us with a formal report on that. That report would then inform us and any potential contractors that are going to do the abatement, basically the scope of the project, and they'd be able to quote us what that may cost. So the first step is this study, which is what we were looking to go out and get bids on, really in the next few weeks possible.
So for this one, staff is mainly just socializing the idea of like that we are gonna begin some pre-stabilization type studies. When we get this study back, and we go out to bid, we'll have a better idea that we can bring back to the board, because we suspect the actual construction would require board approval. Or the actual abatement would require that, because we suspect that it'd be at the threshold where it would meet our procurement standards to come to the board.
And this study is required by both SHPO and the city's Historic Resource Commission in order for them to potentially provide approval for us to do any sort of abatement work. They wanna see this study.
So was that total sum of money for the assessment and the abatement that you referenced a minute ago, Andy?
That's what the estimates
Yes,
were,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm just curious how you can have a number for the abatement if you haven't identified the problem yet.
I think what we did was when Stan Tech went in, they took someone in the building with them that probably is more in this world and ballparked it just from what they could see. So there is wiggle room. This could be less, it could be more.
Yeah, okay.
And obviously, we'll be coming back to this body and the board, I'd imagine, Ashley, with further information and potential requests for permission to move forward with any contractors if we get that far.
Yeah, because the grant does include, does require potentially a 25% match of whatever the total project cost is in order to get that full grant reimbursement. We do want to dig into it a bit more to see if we can use other grant resources to serve as a portion of that match versus which portion is equity. But we'll have those details when we come back with what the full scope would cost.
Great, that's exciting. Very far out of my depth of expertise, but make sure you hire a really, really good company that knows what they're doing with asbestos.
Yeah.
I believe it's strict liability to the owner if we screw up there, so.
Maybe we should look at our insurance policies before we. before we do that. Okay, so we would, I think at this point, we would,
Propose going to executive
Yeah.
session.
Yeah, to discuss the potential disposition of real property, the publicity of such would substantially affect the value thereof.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Not in my holiday party.
So,
kid.
We'll let the minutes reflect that, no action was taken during the executive session.
And if we should get a motion.
Motion
first
to-
and second,
oh,
to come out,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Yeah,
Okay, we are out of executive session. Great.
and then
Do you need an
the
adjourn?
minutes will reflect that we didn't take any action in executive session
Okay.
and motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
First,
favor?
second.
Aye.
Aye. Good seeing everyone. Take care.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.